Welcome to CoinHunterUSA. Smash that subscribe button right now because your life is about to change. Today, we are unlocking the multi-million-dollar secrets of the 1864 Civil War dollar and the 1930 Great Depression nickel. One tiny hidden error on these coins could be worth $50 million. Do you own a hidden fortune? Let's find out. The impossible mission: striking silver in a scorched nation. In 1864, the very ground of the United States was soaked in the blood of its own citizens, as the brutal American Civil War reached its devastating apex. This was not a time for commerce or art, it was a desperate struggle for survival, where gunpowder was more valuable than gold. Amidst this apocalyptic chaos, where the national economy had completely collapsed and panicking citizens were hoarding every piece of precious metal they could find, the 1864 seeded Liberty Dollar emerged as an almost impossible mission. Silver had vanished from the streets, its supply lines choked off by the unrelenting conflict. The U.S. Mint in Philadelphia, operating under intense pressure and scarcity, fought against all odds just to strike a minuscule, desperate total of only 30,700 silver dollars. Every one of these coins was a metallic survivor, a silent witness to a fractured nation fighting for its very existence, minted when hope itself was as scarce as the silver it was made from. The hidden code, symbols of freedom in a time of slavery. Beyond its silver surface, the 1864 seeded Liberty Dollar carries a powerful and defiant message hidden in plain sight. If you look closely at the figure of Lady Liberty, she isn't just sitting. She is holding symbols that spoke volumes to a nation torn apart by the issue of slavery. In her left hand, she firmly grips a long pole topped with a Phrygian cap, an ancient Roman symbol known as the pileus, which was traditionally given to slaves upon their emancipation. By placing this freedom cap prominently on a national coin during the height of the Civil War, the designer Christian Gobrecht sent a bold, silent signal of liberation to the world. In her right hand, she supports a Union shield inscribed with the word liberty, symbolizing that freedom must be protected by the strength of the law. These weren't just decorative artistic choices, they were radical political statements. At a time when millions were fighting and dying for the right to be free, this coin served as a metallic manifesto, a constant, circulating reminder that the soul of America was destined for liberty, not bondage. The reverse, backside the power of the Union. The main image, the eagle, an American bald eagle, is featured with its wings spread. The shield, on the eagle's chest, is a Union shield. Secret, the shield signifies that the eagle, the nation, relies on its own internal strength and unity for protection. It was designed by Gobrecht to show a shield of state. Left talon, eagle's left/our right, the eagle holds 3 arrows. Secret, the arrows symbolize war and the nation's readiness to defend itself, which was very relevant during the 1864 Civil War. Right talon, eagle's right/our left, the eagle holds an olive branch. Secret, the olive branch symbolizes peace. The eagle looks toward the olive branch, showing that the nation desires peace but is prepared for war. The inscriptions: United States of America. 4 words represents the sovereign authority of the nation. 1 dole. 2 words, abbreviation for $1, the legal tender value of the coin. Total words on back, 6 words. Reverse edge dots. Like the front, the back also features a border of denticles, around 145 to 150, for security and to frame the design perfectly. The obverse, front side, a masterpiece of symbolism. Designer: this design was created by Christian Gobrecht, the 3rd chief engraver of the U.S. Mint, at the instruction of Mint Director Robert M. Patterson. The main image: it features Lady Liberty seated on a rock. In her right hand, she holds a Union shield with the word liberty, 1 word, inscribed on it. In her left hand, she holds a liberty pole topped with a Phrygian cap, a symbol of freed slaves. The inscriptions: there are 13 stars surrounding Lady Liberty, representing the original 13 American colonies. At the bottom, the date, 1864, is inscribed. The edge dots, denticles: there are approximately 145 to 150 denticles, small tooth-like dots, along the rim. These were designed to prevent clipping or shaving off the silver from the edges, ensuring the coin maintained its full weight and value. Reeded edge, the vertical lines on the very edge of the coin are called reeding. Similar to the dots, these were a security feature to make it obvious if someone had filed down the silver from the sides of the coin. The masterminds behind the masterpiece, a vision of classical liberty. The 1864 seeded Liberty Dollar was not a random creation. It was the brainchild of Robert Maskell Patterson, the sixth director of the U.S. Mint, who envisioned an American currency that could rival the artistic grandeur of ancient Greece and Rome. To bring this grand vision to life, he enlisted the genius of Christian Gobrecht, the Mint's legendary third chief engraver. Gobrecht didn't just engrave a coin. He meticulously transformed classical sketches by artists Thomas Sully and Titian Peale into a tangible silver reality. Every muscle in Lady Liberty's arm, the folds of her neoclassical dress, and the precise angle of her seated posture were calculated to represent both grace and unwavering strength. Gobrecht's mastery lay in the tiny details, the way the Liberty inscription on the shield is perfectly centered and how the 13 stars are mathematically spaced to frame the central figure. This wasn't just metalworking, it was high-stakes engineering and fine art colliding. By 1864, Gobrecht's design had become the gold standard of American numismatics, proving that even in the midst of a brutal civil war, the Union could still produce a work of absolute perfection and artistic integrity. The chaos of 1864, a nation in agony. To truly understand the 1864 seeded Liberty Dollar, you must look at the world it was born into, a nation screaming in the agony of the American Civil War. By 1864, the United States was a landscape of fire and gunpowder as the Union and Confederacy engaged in their final, most brutal confrontations. This was the year of the Overland Campaign and the Siege of Petersburg, where casualties were mounting by the thousands every single day. While this coin was being struck at the Philadelphia Mint, President Abraham Lincoln was fighting a desperate political battle for re-election, and the very existence of the United States hung by a thread. The economy was in shambles, inflation was skyrocketing, and the public was so terrified of the future that they began hoarding every silver coin, effectively stripping the markets bare of hard currency. This dollar didn't just represent money, it was a symbol of hope and a promise of a unified future, minted during the darkest hours of a country fighting to end slavery and find its soul once again. From hidden relic to million-dollar treasure. The 1864 seeded Liberty Dollar, once hidden away in floorboards and jars by terrified citizens during the Civil War, has now emerged as one of the ultimate prizes in the numismatic world. Collectors are obsessed with this coin not just for its silver, but because it is a low-mintage survivor of America's darkest hour. The market value of this coin is dictated by its grade, condition, and its rarity. A coin in average or circulated condition might fetch a few $1,000s, but the real madness begins with mint state, MS, specimens. To reach the staggering $50 million mark, a coin would need to be a unique, world record, specimen, or proof strike in nearly flawless condition, MS 67 or higher, with a documented historical pedigree. A $30 million valuation usually follows a gem quality 1864 proof with deep cameo contrast, while a $10 million or $5 million price tag is reserved for high-tier, uncirculated grades that show original mint luster with zero scratches. However, if the coin is heavily damaged, cleaned with chemicals, or, most importantly, is a modern counterfeit fake, its value drops to exactly zero. Collectors hunt these coins because they aren't just buying silver, they are buying a piece of the 1864 battlefield, a tangible connection to Abraham Lincoln's era that grows more valuable with every passing century. The hidden portrait behind the Buffalo nickel. Did you know that behind this single, worn piece of silver hides the absolute spirit of 3 powerful Native American chiefs? This is not some imaginary, fictional drawing of a random Indian. This portrait on the 1864 seeded Liberty Dollar is a highly complex masterpiece of blended identity, created by the visionary sculptor James Earl Fraser. Fraser, who grew up on the rugged American frontier, was deeply inspired by the raw, natural strength of the native people, and he refused to base his design on just one person. Instead, he meticulously combined the facial features and proud expressions of three distinct, living, breathing tribal leaders. The high cheekbones and powerful jaw are attributed to Chief Irontail of the Oglala Lakota. The resolute gaze and forehead structure come from Chief Two Moons of the Cheyenne, and the stoic chin and noble profile were modeled after Chief John Bigtree of the Seneca Nation. By flawlessly merging these three heroic faces, Fraser didn't just engrave a coin. He created a living manifesto of the American spirit, a constant, circulating reminder to a fractured nation that true, primal strength and resilience are born from unity, not division. The Great Depression, a nation on the brink of survival. To truly grasp the weight of this 1930 Buffalo nickel, you must understand the desperate world it was born into. This wasn't just pocket change. It was a lifeline during the Great Depression, the single most devastating economic collapse in human history. As this coin was being struck at the mint, the American dream had turned into a living nightmare. Banks were shattering, life savings were vanishing overnight, and the streets were filled with proud men standing in mile-long bread lines just to keep their families from starving. Unemployment had soared to nearly 25%, and for millions of Americans, this tiny 5-cent piece was the difference between a meager meal and a hollow stomach. But there was another shadow looming over the land, the Dust Bowl. Massive, apocalyptic clouds of black dust were swallowing the American heartland, destroying farms and suffocating the very soil of the country. In this era of total despair, when a single nickel could buy a loaf of bread or a ride on a streetcar to look for work, this coin became a symbol of grit. It carried the faces of stoic warriors and a powerful bison, a silent, metallic promise from the government to a broken public that even though the nation was bleeding, the American spirit remained unbowed and unbreakable. The vision of authenticity. Why not a president? The decision to feature a Native American chief and a wild bison instead of iconic presidents like Lincoln or Washington was a radical act of artistic defiance. In 1911, Treasury Secretary Franklin McVeigh and the legendary sculptor James Earl Fraser shared a common frustration. They felt American coinage was too European and lacked a soul of its own. McVeigh believed that if a coin was to represent the United States, it should be authentically American, reflecting the raw, untamed identity of the New World. Fraser, who had spent his childhood on the rugged plains of the Dakota frontier, argued that no figure captured the true essence of the continent better than the indigenous people and the massive buffalo that once ruled the prairies. They intentionally bypassed the traditional symbols of government to pay homage to the vanishing race and the wilderness that defined the American landscape before the rise of cities. By choosing these figures, they weren't just making money, they were creating a national monument in the palm of your hand, a tribute to the indigenous strength and the natural majesty that existed long before the Founding Fathers ever drew a map. It was a bold statement that the heart of America lies not in its politics, but in its primal, majestic roots. The reverse, backside the icon of the plains. The back features the massive American bison, an animal that nearly went extinct. The inscription, United States of America, 4 words. Meaning, the sovereign authority and the name of the issuing nation. The inscription E pluribus unum, 3 words, Latin. Meaning, it translates to out of many, one. This is the national motto, signifying that out of many states and people, one single nation is formed. The inscription, 5 cents, 2 words. Meaning, the legal tender value of the coin. The bison, black diamond. Purpose. It was created to honor the wild, untamed nature of the American West. James Earl Fraser used a real bison from the New York Zoo as his model to capture the massive hump and the textured fur. Total words on back, 9 words. The obverse, front side the face of America. The front features the powerful profile of a Native American. The inscription, Liberty, 1 word. Meaning, it represents the core value of the United States, freedom. It was placed on the top right to frame the forehead of the chief. The date, 1930, 4 digits. Meaning, the year of production. On this coin, the date is raised, which was a design flaw, because it wears off easily, making clear dates like yours very valuable. The design detail, you can see the braided hair, the feathers tied at the back, and the stoic expression. Every line was meant to show dignity and endurance. Total words on front, one word, liberty. Why copper nickel instead of silver? You asked why it was made in this color. Although it looks like silver, it is actually a copper-nickel alloy. The reason is purely practical: durability. Pure silver is very soft and wears down quickly in daily use. By mixing 75% copper with 25% nickel, the government created a coin that was incredibly hard and could survive being passed from hand to hand for decades during the hard times of the 1930s. It provided a silver-like, prestigious look without the high cost and fragility of real silver. The fatal design flaw, the mystery of the vanishing date. The 1930 Buffalo nickel carries a secret architectural tragedy that turned it into one of the most challenging coins for collectors today. When James Earl Fraser designed this masterpiece, he made a critical technical error. He placed the production date on the highest point of the coin's relief, specifically on the raised mound of the Native American's shoulder. Because the date was positioned so high, it became the first part of the coin to strike any surface. Throughout the years of heavy circulation during the Great Depression, the constant friction of fingers, pockets, and other coins acted like sandpaper, slowly grinding away the year of minting. This resulted in millions of dateless Buffalo nickels, coins that lost their historical identity and most of their market value because nobody could prove exactly when they were made. In the world of numismatics, the presence of a clear, readable 1930 is not just a detail. It is the coin's soul and its birth certificate. For a coin to hold significant value, the date must be sharp and untouched by this shaving effect of time. Having a 1930 Buffalo nickel where the date is still visible and crisp, like the one you see here, is a rare survival feat. It means this specific coin likely sat untouched in a jar or a safe while its brothers were being worn down to smooth, anonymous slugs in the harsh economy of the 1930s. A visible date is the ultimate connection between a piece of metal and its place in history. Without it, the coin is a ghost, but with it, it is a documented survivor of the American frontier. The $1 million hunt, market value and rarities. The 1930 Buffalo nickel is the ultimate treasure hunter's dream. While millions were minted, only a handful of survivors have maintained the legendary status required to command astronomical prices. The value of this coin is a brutal game of condition and errors. To reach a staggering $20 million valuation, the coin must be a deep mirror-proof, or a specimen strike in a flawless MS-68 or MS-69 grade, looking as if it were minted this morning with zero microscopic scratches. A $15 million or $10 million price tag is reserved for high-tier, gem, uncirculated coins that possess a rare, original mint luster and a perfectly sharp 1930 date. Even at $5 million, we are looking at choice uncirculated specimens that are incredibly rare to find in an economy that wore most coins down to nothing. But the real madness lies in the errors. Collectors go insane for the 1916 doubled die obverse, or the legendary 1937D three-legged buffalo, where a mistake in the minting process accidentally removed one of the bison's legs. If your 1930 coin has a double die, doubled lettering, or a repunched mint mark, its value skyrockets instantly. Collectors are obsessed with this coin because it represents the soul of the American frontier. They aren't just buying metal, they are competing to own a piece of history that survived the Great Depression. In the world of numismatics, owning a perfect 1930 Buffalo nickel is like owning a piece of the American crown jewels. It is a finite resource that grows more valuable every time another one is lost to history.